All right, time for another deep dive. Today we're diving into something a lot of you have been asking about. Vocabulary. Vocabulary. Vocabulary.
It's so important, right?
It is, and specifically, we're going to be looking at 30 words, kind of a nice round number, from the Oxford 5000.
Oh, yeah.
Now, for those of you who don't know, the Oxford 5000 is this really, really great list
Yeah.
of core vocabulary words that anyone learning English should try to master.
Absolutely.
Because it really does, the more words you know, the more fluent you become, the more you can read, understand, write, have conversations, and really, really just express yourself.
Yeah, express yourself better. I think that's a great way to put it. And what's even cooler about the set of words we're looking at today is that they are specifically from Group 40 of the Oxford 5000. What does that mean?
Well, what does it mean? Tell us.
Basically, what that means is that these are for learners who are kind of moving beyond the very, very basics. You've got a good foundation, and now we're adding some of those extra layers of vocabulary.
Those nuanced words.
Those nuanced words, those shades of meaning that allow you to be a more sophisticated English speaker.
Right, so not just saying happy, but being able to say elated or joyful.
Exactly. So, you ready to jump into these words?
I am. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Let's start with mob.
Hmm.
And, I think we often hear about like mob mentality, right?
Yeah.
When you're in a large group of people and maybe everyone's getting a little rowdy or, not thinking clearly as individuals.
Right. That sort of feeling of anonymity. Maybe you lose a little bit of your individual responsibility when you're part of a big crowd.
Right.
But I mean, mob doesn't always have to be negative, right?
No, it doesn't. Give us some examples of that.
So, I mean, think about Black Friday, the big shopping day. You could have a mob of shoppers all descending upon a store trying to get those, those great deals.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Or how about, like a flash mob? You ever seen one of those?
Oh, yeah. Those are so fun.
Right. It's a mob of dancers. All of a sudden they break out into this rehearsed dance in the middle of a public square.
It is really cool and unexpected. So it can be a positive thing for sure.
It can. And then, of course, there are those times where a mob can be dangerous, right? When maybe a crowd is fueled by anger, or maybe frustration, and it turns violent.
Yeah, definitely. So the context really shapes how we understand mob. Now, speaking of movement, that brings us to our next word, which is mobility.
Oh, mobility. Yeah.
And I think about, exploring a new city, how important mobility is.
Absolutely. If a city has really good public transportation, you can say it has high mobility. It's easy to get around.
Right. Easy to get from point A to point B.
Exactly. But, mobility can also be used in a more figurative sense. So it's not just about physical movement. It can also be about social mobility.
Oh, interesting.
Like if you have access to good education, that can increase your upward mobility.
Yeah,
more opportunities.
You can move up in society.
Exactly. And even when we're talking about technology,
Yeah, okay.
if you have a mobile phone with a battery that lasts a long time, that gives you the mobility to work from anywhere, connect with people from anywhere.
It really does. We take it for granted, but yeah.
It's true.
So many layers to that word mobility. Now, kind of similar, but a little bit different is the word mobilize.
Ah, okay.
And I always think of, mobilize is about taking action. I think of those big moments in history where people came together, mobilized for a cause.
Yeah, think about the civil rights movement in the U.S. You had activists that mobilized millions of people to fight for equality.
Right. Really powerful.
Or even, something like a natural disaster, right?
Yeah.
A community can mobilize really quickly to provide aid and support.
Yeah. And even today, I think about social media, you can mobilize people around an issue that they care about through social media.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
such a powerful tool for that.
It is. It's incredible how a single word can encompass such huge, collective action.
Mm-hmm.
Now, kind of switching gears a little bit, we have the word mode.
Mode, okay.
And mode, to me, is all about, a way of doing something. It's like a category.
Yeah, it's like a setting almost.
Yeah, like a setting. And I think of, when I was a kid, we learned about different modes of transportation.
Right, like walking or cycling or driving a car, taking the train.
Exactly. exactly. And, even your phone, there's different modes on your phone.
Oh, yeah.
Silent mode, vibrate mode.
Airplane mode?
Airplane mode. Yeah, exactly. Or, if you think about music, a musician might compose in a certain mode.
Yeah, like a major or a minor key.
Exactly. Or a writer, they have their mode of expression. Are they being very formal? Are they being informal?
Yeah, it really does cover a lot of different categories.
It does. Okay, now for a word that I feel like is all about balance. Moderate.
Moderate.
Like not too much, not too little, just right.
Yeah, that sweet spot.
The sweet spot. So give us some examples.
Well, if you think about exercise, right?
Yeah.
Moderate exercise is really good for you. Too much, that can actually be a bad thing.
Right. You can overdo it.
Yeah. You can also have a moderate climate, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not too hot, not too cold, very pleasant. Or you might have a moderate political stance, right?
Right in the middle.
Yeah, kind of in between the two extremes.
Yeah, trying to find that common ground. Now, similar but slightly different is modest.
Okay.
And to me, modest is all about being humble, not wanting to brag, not being too extravagant.
Yeah, like you could have a modest home, right?
Yeah.
It's comfortable, it's functional, but it's not, a giant mansion showing off all this wealth.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a modest lifestyle, where you're focused on your needs and not all these excessive wants.
Yeah.
And then you can also have a modest person, someone who doesn't boast. They don't seek attention.
Even if they've done amazing things.
Even if they've done amazing things, which is really cool.
Yeah. It's a very good quality, I think, to have. Now, our next word is modification.
Modification.
And modification just basically means a change, right? It can be big or small.
Yeah, and we make modifications all the time.
We do.
Like you might modify a recipe, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to add some spice, or maybe you have some dietary restrictions.
Right. Or you're allergic to something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone who loves cars, they might make modifications to their car to improve its performance or maybe how it looks. And of course, in the world of software, right?
Of course, yeah.
You're constantly making modifications and updates.
Always. To improve the user experience.
Exactly.
Make things run smoothly. And speaking of things running smoothly, that brings us to the word momentum.
Oh, momentum.
Yeah, and momentum is, it's that force that kind of keeps things going once we get started.
Yeah, it's that forward motion.
Yeah, forward.
Think about, a boulder rolling down a hill. As it rolls, it gains momentum. And then it becomes harder and harder to stop.
Right.
Or if you have a really successful marketing campaign, right?
Yeah.
That can gain momentum and lead to more and more sales.
Like awareness, people talking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you think about, sports, right?
Of course.
If a team's on a winning streak, they have all this momentum. They feel confident. They're going to keep winning.
Yeah. They're unstoppable. It's almost like this unseen force.
Yeah, exactly.
Propelling them forward. Now, for a word that's a little bit more peaceful, a little bit more tranquil, monk.
Monk, okay.
I think about, individuals who dedicate their lives to spirituality and, wisdom.
Yeah, often they live a very simple life, right?
Very simple.
Maybe in a monastery, they're devoting themselves to prayer, meditation, study.
Yeah, a life of contemplation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And often, they wear simple robes. Maybe they've taken vows of poverty or silence.
Right. Detaching from the material world.
Exactly. And monks can be found, across different religious traditions, Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism.
Yeah.
And they all play this really vital role in keeping, ancient wisdom and traditions alive.
Yeah. Really fascinating way of life.
Mm.
Okay. Complete opposite end of the spectrum here. Monopoly.
Monopoly. Okay. Yeah.
And, monopoly makes me think about these giant corporations that control a whole industry, right?
Yeah, it's like they have complete control, maybe over prices, they can limit competition, and that's actually something that governments try to prevent.
Right, because it's not fair.
It's not fair. It can stifle innovation. It can be bad for consumers.
Right. But monopoly can also exist in a more fun way.
It can. I mean, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Monopoly?
Well, the board game, right?
Exactly. And in that board game, the goal is to get as much property as possible. You're trying to create a monopoly on the board.
Right. Own everything.
So it can be a real-world economic issue, but it can also be a fun game to play with your friends.
It can be very competitive.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of games, sometimes we play games about this next word. Monster.
Monster. Everyone loves a good monster story.
They do. Whether it's, when you're a kid and you're having nightmares or, horror movies.
Yeah, our imaginations are just filled with monsters, from these mythical creatures like dragons and unicorns to the scary monsters under the bed.
Right.
But monster doesn't always have to be a literal creature, right?
Right.
You can also call a person a monster if they do something horrible.
Yeah. Really cruel, lacking empathy.
Exactly. It's like their actions make them monstrous.
Right. Yeah. So it can be a creature or it can be a metaphor.
Exactly.
For something dark within humanity. Okay, now for a word that's part of everyone's daily life, whether we like it or not, monthly.
Oh, yeah, monthly.
And monthly just means something that happens every month.
Every month, yeah, it comes around like clockwork.
Like clockwork. And the first thing I think of are bills.
Oh, of course, bills.
The rent, the utilities, the subscriptions.
Those monthly expenses. Always there.
Yeah, always there. But it doesn't always have to be something negative, right?
No, not at all. You could have a monthly book club meeting.
Ooh, I like that.
Or maybe you get a monthly newsletter from an organization that you really like.
Right, or a magazine subscription.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it can be positive too. Okay, now for a word that's all about history and memory. Monument.
Monument.
And I think about those, grand structures, those statues, the memorials that remind us of the past.
Yeah, those big, impressive structures commemorating important people or events. Like, what comes to mind for you?
I think of the Lincoln Memorial.
Oh, yeah.
In Washington, D.C.
A powerful monument.
It is.
Or what about the Eiffel Tower?
Yeah, the Eiffel Tower.
Not only a monument to engineering, but also a symbol of Paris itself.
It is, but monuments can also be very simple, right?
They can be. It doesn't have to be a huge, structure. Think about a simple headstone in a cemetery. Yeah. That's a monument to a loved one's life.
Yeah, so it can be big or small.
Exactly.
But they all serve that same purpose of, remembering.
Remembering, marking a place, marking a person.
Yeah, linking us to the past. Now, for a word that's a little bit more abstract, morality.
Ooh, morality.
And morality is all about, our values.
Yeah, like what we believe is right and wrong.
Right and wrong, and it can guide our actions.
Absolutely.
And it's a tricky one, right?
It's a really tricky one because what's considered morally right in one culture or in one time period could be totally different somewhere else or at a different time.
Yeah, it's very complex.
It's complex. Philosophers have been debating this for centuries.
Yeah.
And, we all have our own personal sense of morality, and we're constantly, facing situations that challenge that.
Right.
Where we have to make difficult choices.
Exactly. So figuring out morality is an ongoing process, I think.
I think so, too.
Now, here's a word that's very helpful in writing, and I use it all the time. Moreover.
Moreover. Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like saying in addition or furthermore.
Yeah, it's like you're adding emphasis, you're building on an idea.
Exactly.
So, like, for example, you could write, the new restaurant got amazing reviews. Moreover, its location in the heart of downtown made it an instant success.
Yeah, I like that.
Or you could say, regular exercise is great for your physical health. Moreover, it can reduce stress and improve your mood.
Yeah, so it's like you're giving an extra point.
Exactly. It strengthens your argument, it connects those related ideas.
It does. It's a small word, but it's mighty. Okay, now for a word that a lot of people will encounter at some point in their lives, mortgage.
Mortgage. Oh, yeah.
And a mortgage is basically a loan that you take out to buy a house, right?
Yeah, a loan specifically for buying property. And it's a big commitment, right?
It's a big commitment.
Usually you're making monthly payments for many years, sometimes even decades.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It is. And the interest rates, they play a big role in how much it actually costs you.
Yeah, so you really have to shop around.
You do. And sometimes people refinance their mortgage to get a better interest rate.
Right. Take advantage of, the market.
Exactly.
Yeah. So mortgage is a big word.
It is.
It's a big commitment.
Yeah.
Now, for a word that represents a place that's very important to many people around the world, mosque.
Mosque.
A mosque is a place of worship for Muslims.
Right.
And, I always think of the beautiful architecture of mosques.
Oh, they're stunning. Often very intricate designs, domes, minarets.
Right. And it's a place where people come together.
They come together to pray, of course, attend religious services, connect with their community.
Right. And it's more than just a place of worship, right?
It is. Mosques can also be centers for education, social gatherings, charity work.
Right. So they're really vibrant hubs of community.
Absolutely.
Now, for a word that encompasses all kinds of movement, from the tiniest to the largest, motion.
Motion? Yeah.
And motion just means movement.
Movement, change in position.
Right.
Think about, even just the small motion of your hand as you're writing.
Okay.
Or the graceful motions of a dancer.
Yeah.
Or even the powerful motion of a wave crashing on the shore.
Right. So it can be very small, it can be huge.
Exactly. And in physics, motion is actually a really important concept. Describes how an object changes position over time.
Right.
And, we even use it in film, right?
Yeah.
A motion picture.
Yeah, motion picture, because it gives us the illusion of movement from still images.
Exactly.
It is really interesting. Okay, now for a word that's all about inspiring action. Motivate.
Motivate, to give someone a reason to do something.
Yeah, to give them that push. And I think of, good teachers, good coaches, good mentors who have this ability to motivate.
It's a really powerful skill to have. A good leader can motivate their team to work together toward a shared goal.
Right. And sometimes we need something external to motivate us.
Right. We do. Maybe a deadline is motivating.
Ooh.
Maybe there's a reward. But ultimately, the best kind of motivation comes from within.
Yeah, that inner drive.
Yeah, that passion for what you're doing, the belief that you can make a difference.
Right. And if you can find that, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Now, very closely related is motivation.
Motivation.
So motivate is the verb, motivation is the noun.
Exactly.
And it's basically that driving force.
Yeah,
Right?
it's the why behind the what.
Well, why behind the what?
Why are you doing what you're doing?
Right.
What's pushing you forward? And, some people have very strong motivation.
They do.
And they're more likely to achieve their goals.
Yeah.
But if you lack motivation, it can be really hard to even get started.
Right. Let alone finish.
Exactly. And everyone is motivated by different things.
They are.
Some people are motivated by recognition, some by money, some by a sense of purpose.
Yeah. Really interesting to think about what motivates you and what motivates other people.
Absolutely.
Now, for a word that's often used in, detective stories, motive.
Ooh, motive. Okay.
So if there's a crime, the detective's trying to figure out the motive.
Yeah, the why behind the crime. What drove the person to do it?
Right.
Why did they do this?
Yeah, why did they do this?
Yeah.
So the detective's piecing together clues.
Right, and you see this in literature, too.
Yeah.
If you want to understand a character, you have to understand their motives.
Right.
And even in our own lives,
Oh, yeah.
we're always trying to analyze our own motives.
Yeah, why did I do that? Why did I say that?
Exactly, and sometimes the answer is clear, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a lot more complicated.
It is. Okay, now zooming in on the world of transportation. Motorist.
Motorist, okay.
So a motorist is anyone who drives a car.
Right. Yeah, anyone who's operating a motor vehicle.
Operating a motor vehicle. I like that.
We hear about motorists all the time in traffic reports, right?
Yeah.
Especially during rush hour.
Rush hour, yeah. Everyone's trying to get somewhere.
Exactly. And motorists have a responsibility to follow traffic laws, to drive safely.
Right, to keep everyone safe.
Exactly. And it's interesting to think about how, with the rise of self-driving cars, what it means to be a motorist might be changing.
That's true. Now, for a word that can have both a physical meaning and an emotional meaning, moving.
Ooh, moving. moving.
So, of course, you can move from one place to another.
Right.
But something can also be emotionally moving.
Absolutely.
A story, a piece of music, a work of art.
Yeah, like you could say, that movie was so moving, I cried.
Right.
Or her speech was really moving and inspired me to take action.
Yeah. So it can describe physical displacement.
Right.
Like when you move your belongings to a new house.
Yeah.
But it can also describe a very profound emotional impact.
Exactly.
It's a great word to use, if you're trying to express how something made you feel.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, now for a word that's all about local government. Municipal.
Municipal.
And, I think about all the services that municipal governments provide.
Yeah, the things that make our cities and towns function.
Yeah, things that we rely on.
Like garbage collection.
Yeah.
Water treatment, public transportation.
Right. Maintaining roads and parks, keeping us safe.
Exactly. And we have municipal elections, right?
Yeah.
To choose who represents us at that local level.
Yeah.
Who makes decisions about how our communities are run.
Right.
So municipal governments, they're really the backbone of our communities.
They are. Okay, now for a word that emphasizes the importance of shared experiences. Mutual.
The mutual, yeah.
And mutual means that something is felt or done by two or more people equally.
Equally, yeah. So like mutual respect is really important in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't respect each other, the relationship's not going to work very well.
No, it won't. Or, a business deal. If two companies want to work together, they need to have mutual interests.
Exactly. They need to benefit from the partnership.
They need to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And I think in a world that can often feel very divided,
Oh, yeah.
It's so important to remember the importance of mutual understanding.
Absolutely. Finding that common ground.
That common ground. Okay, now let's step into the world of storytelling with the word myth.
Ooh, myth. Okay.
And I think about, those ancient cultures.
Yeah.
And their myths about gods and goddesses, heroes and monsters.
Right. Stories that explain how the world began, or maybe why things are the way they are.
Right. But myths are more than just stories, right?
They are. They often reflect the beliefs and values of the culture that created them.
Right. They teach us about different cultures.
Exactly. They can teach us a lot, and often, they get passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, they become part of, a culture's history.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, even today we're creating new myths.
Oh, we are. Give us some examples.
We'll think about popular culture.
Okay.
Superhero stories, science fiction, fantasy.
Right.
Those are kind of our modern day myths.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they really do transcend time, and they can be found everywhere. Okay, now for a word that can be a little bit sensitive. Naked.
Naked, okay.
And, literally it means without clothes.
Right. In your birthday suit.
But it can also be used more figuratively.
It can.
To describe vulnerability or being exposed.
Right. So you might enjoy swimming naked in a lake.
Okay.
Feeling that sense of freedom.
Right.
Or we talk about the naked truth.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning, just the plain, unvarnished truth, even if it's hard to hear.
Right. No sugarcoating.
Exactly. Or, we talk about a naked eye observation.
Okay.
Meaning something you can see without needing a telescope or a microscope.
Right. Just using your own eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we can have those literal and those figurative meanings. Now, for a very helpful word, I think, especially if you're trying to be precise, namely.
Oh, yeah.
And namely is used to clarify, to specify.
Yeah, it's like you're saying, and here it is.
Here it is.
This is what I'm talking about.
All right, you're narrowing it down. So give us an example.
Sure. So you could say I have one main goal for this year, namely to finish writing my novel.
Okay, I like that.
Or the company had a lot of challenges last quarter, namely supply chain issues and a lack of skilled workers.
Right. So it's really giving that specific detail.
Exactly. It adds that clarity, that precision.
Yeah. And it's a small word.
Tiny word. Big impact.
Big impact. Okay. Now for a word that is, well, kind of unpleasant. Nasty.
Nasty.
And nasty describes something that's just, disgusting, unpleasant.
Yeah, it makes you kind of cringe, like, ugh, that's nasty.
Oh, that's nasty. Like a bad smell or a bad taste.